Hi everyone, my name is Jen. I'm an author and a book reviewer, and I thought I would start a new reading vlog today. It is Friday, the light is disappearing, it's the end of the day, but in this clip I just wanted to talk about the theme of this video and what we're going to be tackling, because to be honest, I'm kind of feeling frustrated. I finished reading the Booker Prize longlist a week or so ago, and if you want to know my thoughts on the 13 longlisted titles, you can head over to my Booker Prize reading vlog, which I'll link in the description box down below. Some books I loved, some books I didn't, but you know, that's the case every year. I finished reading all of those books and I thought, great, now I can read whatever I like. What am I in the mood for? And I decided to read some of my most anticipated books of the year. When I make most anticipated book release lists, some of them are based on the blurbs of books by authors whose work I've never read before, and some of them are books by authors whose work I have read before, so I'm very excited to read what they're bringing out next. So I started diving into some of those books from my 2025 list, and I have been super disappointed so far. So I thought we could tackle more of those books to see if I am rubbish at predicting my 5-star reads, or whether I've just had a run of bad luck recently. I'll talk about the ins and outs of the ones I haven't enjoyed prior to starting this video, but just to quickly mention them here so you can see why I'm frustrated. I listened to Anna Whitehouse's new book. Now this is her first one, which I loved. It's called Underbelly. It came out a couple of years ago. She co-wrote it with her husband. Her new one is called Influenced. And I started listening to it, I think the day that it came out. I don't really know what this book was. It seemed to be doing lots of different things and it changed direction halfway through. And I don't know, I just found it really messy and I was ultimately very disappointed by it. I also listened to Gunk by Saba. I loved her short story collection, which was called Send Nudes. The cover of her novel is really gorgeous. It looks like this. I mean, I like the colours. It's very vibrant. I love the cover. So I was really excited to read her debut novel because I loved her short stories. But again, this one didn't particularly work for me. I didn't think it was messy or anything like that, but I just didn't feel particularly attached to it. And just to throw a rogue one in there, which I thought was a sure love and was not, is Sato the Rabbit Morning Light, which is the 4th book in a current quartet. I assume it will be more than a quartet, by Yuki Ainoya, which is translated from the Japanese by Michael Bleskowski. And this is a collection of illustrated palm of the hand stories, magical realism, gorgeous, about Sato the rabbit who turns light into tea and can lift up the sky. It's a bit like The Little Prince meets the Moomins, and I have loved the previous books in the series, but honestly this one just felt like she had to write another book and had a deadline, and she just repeated stuff that had happened before. Maybe if I hadn't read any of the others in the series, I would have really liked this one because, you know, I wouldn't have seen the similarities obviously, but I just thought this was a waste of my money, quite frankly, and I was a bit cross about it. I would still recommend the earlier books in the series. I will insert those on the screen, so go check those out. Those are gorgeous, but maybe stop after number 2 or 3. So those are the ones that I've read recently and I've been super disappointed by them. Okay, so what could we read in this video to see if I can find something that I do love out of my most anticipated books of the year? So a book that I was actually reading before I started the Booker Prize vlog that I want to go back to is When the Museum is Closed by Yagi. I adored her book Diary of a Void. This is her most recent one. It's about a woman who has to interview a statue, a talking statue at a museum. Then we have No and Other Love Stories by Kirsty Logan. I would like to read that one. Adore Kirsty's work, as you know. I have a proof copy of Sayaka Murata's new novel, which is called Vanishing World, which is translated from the Japanese by Ginny Takamori. But I do have a hold on the audio of this from the library, and my hold is about to come in. So I think I'm going to listen to it on audio. I have adored Convenience Store Woman. Earthlings shocked me. The amount of sexual violence in that book was just, I mean, it's not supposed to be a comfortable read, obviously, but I just could not enjoy it really at all because of that. Though the ending I thought was brilliant. I loved the ending of that. And then her collection of short stories, Life Ceremonies, there were a couple of stories in there that I thought were brilliant and others that I was less impressed by. So this could really go either way. So we'll see how I feel about that one. Then we've got Maggie Su's Blob, a love story. I have not read anything by Maggie Su before. This is about, I believe, a woman who discovers a blob type creature who she can then mold into a boyfriend. There have been quite a few supernatural books about love or lust, or being used as an extended metaphor for identity or queerness in the past few years, like Briefly a Delicious Life, like Woman Eating, like Night Bitch, etc. So I'm interested to see what this one does differently and whether I love it as much as I have loved some of those in the past. Then we have Kit DeWall's new book. This is The Best of Everything. This came out in May. I may audiobook this one. I loved her book, My Name is Leon, and I have really enjoyed other books by her as well. Then we've got Swallows by Natsuo Kirino, who wrote the book Out, which you've heard me talk about a lot because I adored most of it and hated the ending. So we'll see how I feel about this one if I manage to get to it. It is translated from the Japanese by Lisa Hoffman Corrado, and I think that this one is about surrogacy in some form or another. And then I'm just going to say finally, but there may be other books that I decide to pick up as well as or instead of in this video. Who knows where we will get to, but this is Sunbirth by Anne Yu. I have read and absolutely loved her previous two books, Braised Pork and Ghost Music. I always check when I do my most anticipated releases videos for new books by Anne Yu, and nothing had come up earlier this year when I checked. And then one of you commented recently on a video saying, do you have the new Anne Yu? And I was like, excuse me, what? I felt like I had really missed out on that by not tracking it down sooner, but at least now I don't have to wait for it because it's out. So I have a copy of that too. So we have a good stack here of books for me to get to hopefully discover some stories that I adore and want to share with you. So I'm gonna start tackling those as and when, and I will check in with you when I have read some. Yeah, that's all the bookish stuff that I have to say in this clip. One little tidbit from today, which maybe will amuse you. My daughter is really into stickers at the moment. She is one, and we have some of the Usborne first book of stickers. We have a garden one and a farm one. And because she's one, this is what her stickers end up looking like, you know, trucks just piled on top of each other, which is obviously fine, and I love that for her. But I was itching to do a page myself. So during her nap time today, I may have, after I answered all the emails I had to answer, I may have done 2 of the pages of her sticker books myself. And it was very therapeutic and calming and lovely, and she won't notice or care, hopefully. But I enjoyed myself. So that's what I did with some of my free time today. How about you? Right, I will read some stuff and I will check in with you when I have things to say. And yeah, thanks for being here. I'll speak to you in a sec. I just rewatched that last clip, and I love how I ended it saying, see you in a sec. I filmed that clip in September. Can you tell it's not September anymore? It's December for a couple of reasons, which I will explain in a second. We have things to talk about. But firstly, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, which is Serious Readers. Serious Readers, as you know, if you've been following my channel for a while, make reading lights, and in my opinion, they make the best reading lights. This one is mine. This is a high definition floor light. You can adjust the height, you can adjust the brightness. They invented something called daylight wavelength technology, which mimics daylight as closely as possible, which means I can read more comfortably for longer, and I just absolutely adore it. They sent it to me 5 years ago. It's the only reading light I have used since then. I just think it's brilliant, and it would be brilliant if you were doing things like sewing, knitting, something that requires concentration, something you're staring at a lot, a task that you are completing. This would be great for that as well. They're a small UK-based company. They make all of their lights here, and they have sent me a code that you can use if you would like to check them out. I will link them in the description box down below, and if you use the code JEN, you can get £150 off a HD Pro or HD Essential light. They do lots of different models, so take a look at their site and see which one appeals to you the most if you're in the market for a new reading lights. They have a 5-year warranty, and at the moment they're doing an extended 90-day free trial of their HD Pro light. Go check them out. Thank you very much to them, not only for making great things, but also for supporting this channel. Working with them has meant that I have been able to create more content for you this autumn and winter, so I hope that you have been enjoying that as well. Okay, back to the video. Okay, so what has been happening, Jen? Life has been happening. I have been reading, I just haven't checked in with you. And also a month or so ago, we had a lovely bout of hand, foot and mouth. Love toddler life. It's so medieval. Why are there so many poxes? Anyway, it's super contagious among children, and our daughter doesn't go to nursery or anything, but we do go to like a couple of, baby classes and stuff. So, what you're gonna do. So we had hand, foot and mouth, or rather she did, and it's super contagious among children. Adults very rarely get it, but for some reason I was blessed. I was blessed. So I also had hand, foot and mouth. That was fun for both of us. And then a couple of weeks after that, all my nails started to fall out, which is a rare side effect of having hand, foot and mouth. And just to say, that's not the same as foot and mouth disease that cattle get. This is hand, foot and mouth disease, but it is not related, just in case you are concerned. Those of you who have children, I'm sure, are very familiar with this delightful illness. Anyway, yeah, so all my nails started falling out, and that actually made things a little bit difficult. I don't, as you know, I have complicated hands anyway, and also part of having EEC syndrome is like, that wasn't a sentence. Where was I going with that? EEC syndrome is of itself a disease that affects the skin, the hair and the hands primarily, as well as other parts of my body, obviously. So I think that's probably why I got it. I have a reduced immune system anyway, and it's affected my fingernails quite badly. So yeah, they're all falling out, which is not particularly sexy or helpful, because even though I don't care about it very much aesthetically, because some of my fingers never had nails on them in the first place, it turns out not having a nail on a finger where you're used to having a nail is a bit annoying for like opening Tupperware and just day-to-day life. Anyway, so that's been a bit frustrating. That's it. That's the update. You're very welcome for that. So I have been reading as well, and I have things to say because I have read lots of books. Essentially, when I started this video, I thought, oh, I'll read a few of my most anticipated releases. And then the further into this I got really competitive with myself and completionist and thought, I'm going to read every single one of my most anticipated books from 2025. I don't actually think that's going to be possible because 2 of them are holds I have at the library, and I don't think they're going to come in by the end of the year. Talk about that in a sec. But I'm pretty impressed with the progress that we have made. So I'm saying I'm bringing you in on this. You can take credit for it too. But have I loved them? That's the question. I've loved a couple. Let's refresh. Where should we start? Okay, I read Vanishing World by Sayaka Murata, which is translated from the Japanese by Ginny Takamori. I'll put the proof down. This is the finished cover. This is kind of a commentary on lowered birth rate in Japan. I guess Swallows by Natsuo Kirino, which I'll talk about in a minute, also is that. So it's looking at a world where couples no longer sleep together. That's seen as taboo. And all children are created, in inverted commas, artificially. I thought that was an interesting concept, but man, I found the book a bit boring. I thought the book was really frustrating. There were lots of very repetitive, naive, arbitrary conversations between characters. I also found that to be the case for Swallows as well. And the ending, I suppose a little bit like the ending of Earthlings, was explosive and clearly designed to shock. And I didn't find it particularly thought-provoking. I think you're supposed to read it and think, whoa, that's out there, that's really clever. And I read it and just thought, really? I don't know really how to talk about this book without spoiling the ending. And I don't particularly want to do that. I did see some other people say you should really look up what the ending is before you even go into this book because it is so not cool. I'm not sure I would recommend that myself. I don't know, it is very difficult, but it's basically asking, I suppose, the question, where would society go if you made sleeping with each other taboo? what would happen to desire, what form would it take, and how would certain things that would be deemed inappropriate before perhaps become desirable. I don't know. It made me feel very uncomfortable, and obviously it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. So I guess she achieved that, but it just felt as though she didn't really know where to go with the book, and so she wanted to shock you, and that's supposed to be the lasting impression that you have. I thought the concept, as I said, was interesting. I would have loved a short story about it. I didn't really feel like it needed to be a whole novel. Not my fave at all. No, sorry. Should we just get all the disappointments out of the way? Okay, I read Blob by Maggie Su. This one is about a woman who is frustrated in her job and her life and her relationship with her family, and then she finds this blob when she's on a night out, and she takes it home and she finds that she can mold it into a man, and she's wondering what she can do with this and how maybe she can use it to impress people in her life. The reason I didn't end up loving this book is because I felt as though I could see the author the whole time, like orchestrating everything that was happening. It felt quite disjointed, just a lot of scenes that weren't knitted together thoroughly. I don't know, I would be interested to see what this author does next, but the way this one was executed in particular didn't end up appealing to me. Then I read Sunbirth by Ainoya, and as I said in the last clip, I have adored her previous two books. I think that she is wonderful. I always leave her books with this sense of beautiful unease. And I love the world building in this. It is an apocalyptic book where the sun is slowly disappearing and nobody really knows why. And then we pair this with the disappearance of people and then the appearance of people who appear to have burning suns for heads. And it is a commentary on climate crisis, but in a very abstract way, and how it's very easy to become apathetic about something you feel like you can't fix, and things that were once shocking, you just become very numb to them. It was the mystery element of this that I didn't particularly love, and sometimes found a little bit difficult to follow, actually. And I did feel that about her first book, Braised Pork. The mystery element was not my favourite thing about the text, even though it is the main thing in the text. So for me, this was more like her debut novel, but my favourite of all of her books is Ghost Music, which is her second. So that would remain my recommendation to you. That one is just very eerie and haunting. This one felt as though I was reading a off-kilter Kazu Ishiguro book that didn't feel as though it had a particular destination in mind. I admired a lot about this, but it's not one that I will revisit. Maybe her fourth novel will be for me. And then Swallows by Natsuo Kirino, which is translated from the Japanese by Lisa Hoffman-Corrado. This one was definitely more interesting. In fact, there were moments in this book where I was reading it thinking, God, this is good. I think this might be one of my favourite books of the year. And then I would read a chapter and think, sorry, what? And then I would think, oh no, wait, I'm enjoying it again. This is really good. So it was just a very uneven read for me. So we're following two sets of people. We've got Mottley, who is a ballet dancer, very successful, runs a school with his mother, and she is very powerful in the industry. Yuko doesn't really like her. She's also Mottley's second wife, so that is frowned upon quite a lot. They've been trying to conceive for a while. They haven't been able to, so they've decided to do surrogacy. And the woman that they have picked from the catalogue at the clinic is someone who looks like Yuko. That's why Mottley wants to do this surrogacy process with her. But the reason that he wants to have a child is because he is very passionate about passing on his own genes, and his mother wants him to have a lineage so that they can pass on their money, and it's all about power for them. Whereas for Yuko, that's not what it's about. She wants to have a family, and the further into the process they get, the further apart they become. I think the way it explored how pressure to conceive can affect people in a couple differently was very truthful. Then we're also following Ricky, who is the surrogate, and she at the beginning works in an old people's home. And I really like the juxtaposition of that, of looking at end-of-life care and how a lot of the people in this home have been left by their families, aren't being attended to. And it seems as though the implication is the younger generations are focused on themselves and on trying to have children themselves, but aren't, you know, looking backwards, and how that's a very warped way of looking at care, because care should go obviously both ways. So I thought that whole conversation was wonderful, and I would have loved more on that. The weird thing about this book, though, is the way that IVF is talked about. There's quite a bit of detail to do with IVF, and it's told in a very medicinal way, as if someone's read a textbook about it and then written about it. And I actually liked reading the details of the IVF because I've been through 7 years of IVF. I'm very familiar with it. And the injections they're talking about and the procedures, I'm like, yep, I know exactly what those are. Been there, done that. Like, I thought that all of that was written about, as I said, in a very clinical way. The emotions expressed when talking about it, I could not relate to. And I don't know if that's because of the way the characters are, and that's just their personalities, or if we were supposed to believe that this is what people in general feel about IVF. The reason I found it a little bit difficult to read is because, as discussed in this book, surrogacy, it's not as if it's illegal as far as I can tell in Japan. It says in here that it's illegal, but I think it just doesn't have legal boundaries in Japan. So there is no law surrounding it, which makes it very difficult and complicated because no one is protected. So people will go, for instance, to Thailand in order to do certain forms of IVF or surrogacy or egg donation. It meant that the characters in this book were talking about IVF as if it was a newfangled thing, and surrogacy as if it was something they had never heard about before. And they often talk about the morality of these things and whether or not it's okay. And that felt so dated to me. You know, can you love a child if you didn't birth it? Like that kind of very basic conversation. And that threw me a little. I guess I still don't know how I feel about Natsuo Kirino. That is the underlying thing. I enjoyed, as I said, the themes of care and also exploitation of body, or perceived exploitation of body, because we don't just look at surrogacy in this, we also look at sex work. So it's like ownership of bodies. Like, there are things in this that I will come back to and think about time and time again, but overall I was just a little bit perplexed by it. If you have read it, I would love to know what you think, please. Then we'll move on to ones that I have read and loved, and I feel like I may have spoken about these in other videos by the time you're seeing this. So just very briefly, I really enjoyed this short story collection by Kirsty Logan called No and Other Stories. I listened to this on audio. Kirsty narrates it. If you're looking for a little bit of a creepy read about relationships that are complex and people doing questionable things, then pick this one up. This is gorgeous. This is Kimura's Someone to Watch Over You, which is translated from the Japanese by Yuki Teshima. Yes, by Yuki Teshima. And this is about two very lonely people at the early stages of the recent pandemic and how they feel threatened by the world outside, but they felt that before the pandemic happened. So they have this layer of isolation that perhaps others experiencing the pandemic with them don't have, and it's about how they find each other. It's not a love story, and it's not really about a pandemic because we don't talk about hospitals or illness. It's more about paranoia and fear and wanting to be understood, but also not wanting to be perceived. So I adored this. And then I also read Anna James's Alice with a Y, which is a beautiful look at Alice in Wonderland. I am very cynical about Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan adaptations. I feel nostalgically territorial about those books, which is completely unfair because I didn't write them, but I just don't always love adaptations of them. But I can tell that this was written with love. I absolutely loved it. It is about Alice with Y, so Alyce, who is Alice in Wonderland's granddaughter, and she goes back to Wonderland, or goes to Wonderland for the first time herself, to try and solve or stop a war between the Sun King and the Queen of the Moon, because they are fighting over an hour that they both want. So essentially it's a squabble about daylight savings, and I just thought that was hilarious. There are so many nods to the original Alice books in this, but also new lore that I completely believed in. And it's told with whimsy, but also with deep, deep feeling. Like, I laughed and cried when reading this book. I thought it was brilliant. So those are the books that I have read since I last spoke with you. I am hoping that I can get to When the Museum is Closed by Emma Yagi. Perhaps also Kit de Waal's The Best of Everything. And then I want to look over the list of my most anticipated books for this year and talk you through how many I have read and loved and how many just have not hit the mark or have been something that I wasn't expecting. Maybe even we'll look at last year's list or the one before and see how historically I've done with guessing books I'm going to love. The books that I've got on hold at the library, which aren't going to come in on time. Let me just get my library app open. Yeah, I've got The Girls Who Grew Big by Leila Mottley. And at the moment there's a 4-week hold on that. I'm second in line. I started 4th. And then we've got Cursed Daughters by Gunk and Braithwaite, which is a 12-week hold. So that one is not going to come in for quite a long time. I am 6th in line. Yeah, so I think those will reach me in the new year. So I won't be reading those. But let's see if I can get to these and then we can chat more. I do have some B-roll footage to share with you, which is exciting because I never have that to share these days. But a few weeks ago I went on a walk with my friend Sana, who you probably know. She's Books and Quills on YouTube, and hilariously I realized that the last time I left the house on my own not to go to a hospital appointment was in January when I went for a walk with Sana then. That's hilarious to me. So all year I've left the house twice on my own. That's nice. But that's just the phase of life I'm in, and that's all right. But we had a lovely walk along Regent's Canal and I did film a little bit of that. So I will insert some B-roll footage of that here. And then once I have read a little bit more, I will come back and talk to you. And hopefully it will still be December. It won't be next year. Yeah, I'll speak to you, fingers crossed, very, very soon. Hi, it's a couple of days later and I'm filming this the day you're seeing this video. One of you recommended this tea to me because I said I really liked Yorkshire Tea's biscuit brew and their caramelised biscuit brew as well. And one of you said the M&S shortbread tea is even better. You are correct. This is delicious. Don't all go out and buy it and make it so that it's out of stock everywhere, please, because I'm enjoying it a lot. But if a few of you would like to go buy it, that would be very nice. It is delicious. I am loving that. Okay, so since I last spoke to you, I managed to read one more book and we're ending this video on a high, which I'm very excited about. So I read this, which is When the Museum is Closed, which is by Emma Yagi, translated from the Japanese by Yuki. So it's the same translator as another favourite book from this video, which is very exciting. So yes, I absolutely loved this book. I think it's what I wanted Heaven by Miyako Kawakami to be, and I just really thought that book was very heavy-handed. This one is more subtle. There is maybe a bit of expedition, I was going to say. No, a bit of exposition near the end that I could have done without, but for the most part I thought this book weave together themes so beautifully. It was wonderful. This is quite a short novel about a woman called Rika who's recommended for a job by her old Latin teacher, going to a museum to speak to a statue of Venus in Latin when the museum is closed. It's a little bit bizarre, but I'm here for that. I would say this is more out there than her previous book, which is Diary of a Void, which was one of my favourite books the year that I read it, about a woman who pretends to be pregnant in order to get respect from her male colleagues. So this is her going to do this job, but also the rest of the time she's working in what she calls the freezer. So she's working in frozen food, she's making ready meals, and it's all about being numb for whatever reason, trying to thaw yourself out, trying to come back to what it means to be human. And all of this is told through this imagery of frozen food, of carved marble, of also living through watching videos of places rather than visiting them. So she loves watching live streams of places and pretending that she's there. Rika also dreams in still images, so she's trying to get her life to this video format in order to then change the video format into lived experience, I suppose. And within her building, we have an older lady who oversees everything, and she's losing her language, and Rika tries to take care of her. So we have this imagery of losing words and gaining words, losing language, because Latin is a language that people don't speak, but Rika does. So she feels old-fashioned in that way, or maybe out of sync with everybody else. Basically, no one understands her. There are just all of these layered metaphors, and that is the kind of stuff that I love when it comes to analysing books. So I thought this was an absolute joy. And I think my favourite image in the whole book was when she was talking about working in the freezer and how she said that everybody looked like polar bear ghosts. That has stuck with me. I didn't even have to write it down because that image is now just burnt into my brain. So I love that. Hooray and hurrah. But as I said, I wanted to then sit down and go through my most anticipated book releases video from this year, last year and the year before, to find out whether or not I actually end up loving the books that I predict I'm going to love. I guess the anticipated releases are like anticipated 5 stars, or maybe it's just more about excitement and intrigue rather than definitive, I think I'm really, really going to love this. It's more, I'm excited by this and I hope I'm going to love it. Is there a difference? I think there is a marginal difference, I think. So in 2023, I had 20 books on my most anticipated releases list. I read 13 of them. I loved 2 of them. I hated 2 of them. I thought that 9 were good. And there were 4 that I didn't end up buying for one reason or another. Sometimes when I make these videos, releases get pushed into the next year, or maybe I just lose interest and I decide I don't want to buy it anyway. In 2024, I also had 20 books on my most releases list. I only read 6 of them, apparently, but 7 of them I didn't buy, so it's not like I had loads and loads sitting on my shelves or anything. I only loved 1 of them. 1 of them. I hated 2 of them, and I thought 3 of them were okay. So 2024 was not a great year for predicting things for me. In 2025 though, I had 24 books on my most anticipated list. I've read 18 of them, but 2 of them aren't out yet, so I will excuse myself from that. So really that brings it down to 22. So I read 18 out of 22, and the 4 that I haven't yet read, we've got the 2 that I've got on hold from the library, which I mentioned, Cursed Daughters, and what's the other one that I have on hold? It has completely exited my brain. Where is my library app? Oh yeah, of course, The Girls Who Grew Big by Leila Mottley. And then 2 books that I haven't got around to reading yet that I have and own are Nell Stevens, the original, and also Kit DeWar's The Best of Everything. So maybe I can get to some of these before the end of the year, and if they end up making my favourites of the year, then you'll find out in what will probably be my next video, my favourite books of 2025. So out of the 18 books that I did read from my most anticipated list this year, I loved 3 of them. Now, I would say that I'm quite harsh. If I'm going to say I love it, I mean it's made my favourites of the year list. That's basically what I mean. And that's a big ask, right? So I loved 3 of them. I hated 6 of them. That's quite a big number. And I thought that 9 were okay. So if we combine the loved and okay numbers, that's double the number of books that I hated. So I suppose that that's good. But that's definitely a year of extremes, I think. But, you know, in this video, these are the 3 that I would recommend the most. Emi Yagi's When the Museum is Closed, translated by Yuki Teshima. Alice with a Y by Anna James, and Someone to Watch Over You by Kumi Kimura, which is also translated by Yuki Teshima. It's interesting, I wonder if I really like her translation style or if it's just coincidence that she's translated both of those books. An interesting experiment. I would love to know if you make lists of books that you're excited about for the coming year, or even if you don't, just in general, how many books you felt excited about and have then read. Did they live up to your personal hype? Either this year or in previous years, let me know, because I love stuff like this. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you to Serious Readers for sponsoring this video. Thank you for all of your support this year. I think this is probably going to be my final video of 2025. So I will see you for my end of year wrap up and best books of the year video in the not too distant future. I hope you're all doing okay, and I'm sending lots and lots of love. Bye.